Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Mark. And today we're in Mark chapter 8, and we're going to be reading verses 11 through 21. And let's not forget that this is a very difficult period in the ministry of Jesus. When he, in the last chapter, opened the tongue and the ears of the man who was deaf, it says that he looked into heaven and he groaned, let a deep sigh, and communicated to us that things were weighing on him. And I hope that that doesn't make you uncomfortable when we talk about that. Let's not forget that we're showing Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane asking not to have to go through with God's plan, asking that there be another way found. So we should not be surprised that although Jesus was sinless, Jesus was also fully human and felt the full weight, the full burden of what was happening with him and what people expected of him, what God expected of him. Probably understood it better than any other human being ever will, because as God's son and as God himself, he has perception that we don't have. And I think we're going to see this, especially today and tomorrow, or next time, as we continue in chapter 8. Today the Pharisees come and ask for a sign. So we're going to read chapter 8. I'm going to begin reading with verse 11. I'm going to read through verse 21. And the Pharisees came out and began to argue with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven to test him. And sighing deeply, groaning deeply in his spirit, here it is again, he said, "Why does this generation seek for a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation." And leaving them, he again embarked and went away to the other side. And they had forgotten to take bread, and did not have more than one loaf in the boat with them. And he was giving orders to them, saying, "Watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." And they began to discuss with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus was aware of this, and he said, why do you discuss the fact that you don't have any bread? Do you not see or understand? Do you have a hardened heart? And then he quotes Ezekiel, "Having eyes you do not see, and having ears you do not hear." It's interesting because this is sandwiched between the healing of a deaf person and the healing of a blind person, which is the very next event. Do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, and how large baskets full, and how many baskets full of broken pieces did you pick up? And they said 12. And when I broke for the 7 loaves for 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you pick up? And they said to him 7. And he was saying to them, "Do you not yet understand?" I think we understand why Jesus was groaning and why it was getting to him, because very clearly it is getting to him, and I think we're going to see that in the next healing miracle as well. The Pharisees began to argue with him. This is something persistent. They're like gnats in his ear. They're wanting a sign. What more signs do they want? Jesus has raised the dead. He's fed 5,000. He's fed 4,000. He has performed miracles in every village in Galilee. What more do they want? And he's just so frustrated. Why do you keep asking me for a sign? You're not going to get a sign. The ironic thing is that they'd already had hundreds of signs, thousands of signs, something that Nicodemus quite early on in John 3 admits. We know that you're from God. Nobody can do the things that you do unless God has sent him. This is not about them needing proof. This is about them being in opposition to Jesus and trying to cause him trouble. So he leaves and he goes to the other side, gets away from the Jews to go into Gentile territory. And he's trying to teach his apostles in the boat, and he says, "Be afraid of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." Now this is from two different sides. The Pharisees are the religious establishment, and Herod represents wealth and power and fashion and accommodation with Rome. And he says, don't be influenced by either side. That's what he's trying to say. Jesus and Paul will use the aphorism, a little leaven will leaven the whole lump of dough. And it describes how something small but influential can change the shape of something large, of the host organism. And he's saying, don't let the Pharisees or Herod be the leaven to your lump. Don't turn yourself over to their influence. But do they get that? No. All they can think about is, oh, we've only got one piece of bread. And then they're all worried about that. And I cannot imagine how frustrated Jesus had to be. I mean, you can hear it in his voice. He takes them back to kindergarten. It's the way you talk to a kid that's, 15, 16, 17 years old when they can't figure something out that they should have known when they were 5. I mean, that's the way he talks to them. Do you remember when I fed 5,000, with 5 loaves? Yes. And how many baskets full did you get? 12. And do you remember when I fed 4,000 people with 7 loaves? Yes. And how many baskets then did you get? 7. Then why don't you get this? And that's where the story ends, with Jesus' frustration at their almost willful cluelessness. Sometimes you think you'd have to work hard to be in the presence of Jesus and to be so clueless, but then again, that's not fair. We have 20/20 hindsight. We have the Word in our laps, and I can't imagine that we're any better in our own way. And so let's all take a moment to be humble and to pray that we are not so blind to the truth as they were when they were in the presence of Jesus. Tomorrow I have a very small story that brings up so many questions, and I think that communicates so much. Jesus healing the blind man, something that he has to do in 2 steps because he doesn't do it the first time. We'll pick up there next time. Thank you for joining me for 5 Good Minutes.